away we go. Okay, are you going to be the clicker tonight, Michelle?
Sure, I will be the clicker. Yes. So how to
Okay,
talk to your teen?
it's
So
always the dilemma.
let's introduce ourselves. So I'm Michelle, and I am a child life specialist. I have worked with kids for over 18 years, and I've got two of my own kids.
And I'm Sue Kelly, and I'm a behavior therapist with the hospital. I've been at the hospital for 20 years and in the field for 40 as a total. And now I'm into grandmotherhood, so I'm on the second cycle of
You
this
are.
lovely parenting journey.
Hmm. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit about why we have some resistance, what's going on with our teens and their brains. So it is under construction until 25.
So this like needs to have fireworks or something going off. This is like a
Yes,
very
right?
scary piece of information that parents get.
Yes. The good news is that you can support them, build those positive connections. But when things don't come to them quickly, when they make very impulsive decisions, when that you have to repeat, it's because their brain is under construction until 25.
Considering some of us actually started to have children before then.
Yes, right. A lot of people did. I did not, but yes. I was married before 25, but yeah. So I did not get married before 25. I met my husband at 23. Yeah.
There you go.
So anyway, so we've got the adult versus the teen brain. And, the teen brain, they're not using the frontal lobe like we are. So they're not getting their information from the frontal lobe. It's not like, when we drive to work, we know which way is the best way. When we drive to the mall, we know which is the best way, the best place to park, the best way to get to the store that you want to the quickest. Your kids are trying to drive different ways. One day they're going to drive a bus, and maybe they're not driving the bus, they're taking the bus. The next minute, they're walking. So
Yeah, they're
that's,
making those neural connections, right?
yeah, the neural connections there. That's what's happening in their brains, whereas ours is already connected. Right. So we think with that rational part, and the kids are making decisions with the emotional part.
They're very passionate by this point because they've kind of got some of those, they've done some of that base emotion development that younger kids have still to develop. So by the time they're in their teens, this is where we see kids become, very, very passionate about causes and relationships and, romances and, they're very passionate about things. So the emotion is just very rich for them because their experience is much more broadened. But again, they're making those neural connections because they're like, oh, this love relationship or whatever is very new, or I'm feeling that sense of compassion for somebody that was hurt or injured. And again, it's very new for them to experience some of those deeper, more richer emotions. So again, very passionate degree of emotion for teens.
So, when all this is going on, it's really important that we're building those positive relationships because this can be a really trying time. Parents seem to have a hard time transitioning from parenting young children to now a teenager. So, building that relationship and building that rapport will help create those conversations and more cooperation.
So you want to think about, what is the relationship and how do we start to try to reconnect? Because I think there sort of starts to become almost like a little bit of a natural division in some cases, not all cases. But where there's challenging relationships, there's like a division that sort of seems to happen. We think we're launching them and we're letting them go off and do their thing, but we become disconnected. So we want to think about how do we sort of pull that connection back together. And it's a very different way of connecting with teens, right? You want to think about giving them a compliment, right? Taking them out, going for, Starbucks. I mean, nobody's going anywhere for the next 28 days, but how can we, maybe, sit out in the backyard if it was a nice day, and have a coffee together, or, sit on the couch in front of the fireplace and maybe have a cup of tea and, maybe just hang out. Doing some things together, right? Seeing what they like as well. Like, what do they enjoy doing? Are they, doing stuff that maybe you could take an interest in and just explore with them and find out, what are they passionate about? What are they enjoying? What's making them smile? Where are their interests lying? And don't always offer your advice. Kids have and teens have a lot of interesting points of view and perspectives on things. Again, sometimes as adults, we become very rigid with our thinking because we've already have a lived experience, and we think our way is right all the time. So sometimes we need to sort of step back and say, let's hear your side. Let's hear what maybe creative ideas or new ways of thinking that maybe I hadn't really considered before. So maybe take some time to really sit and listen to your kids. And you never know, maybe you might learn something from them. And
Mm-hmm.
remember what it was like to be that age and how important it is to feel heard, right? And to feel like you have somebody that's willing to listen.
So just like anything, pay attention to the good stuff. Pay attention to when they unload the dishwasher when you haven't asked them, when they go and do their homework, when you know that you can rely on them. And with some children, it might be a little less that they're able to do those things. So you have to really pay attention to those good moments. And give them that feedback that this was fun. I liked hanging out with you. It was it's so nice that I can rely on you, or that was a great morning, or, having dinner together was so nice. So give them that feedback, tell them what it is that you like, and be specific. They'll do more of those things because, whether they're 5 or they're 15, they want to do well. They want to make you happy. And that's part of letting them know, I appreciate your effort and I appreciate you being here, and what you do is important to me.
Just some things to be mindful of too is, be aware of your conversation and the timing of your conversation. I mean, if they look like they're in the middle of, texting with a friend or whatever, like, not a great time to interrupt them and say, hey, let's have that chat that, I wanted to talk to you about. Just, recognize that there's a time and a place to have a conversation, right? Be aware of your tone of voice, and not just that, but your body language, your facial expressions. Are you raising your eyes? Are you, flicking your hair? Be aware of your body language. And they don't always have the answers. We don't always have the answers. So why would they have to have the answers all the time? So if we're always asking them why, we're just shutting down that conversation. And as it says, be okay with not having the answers yourself. So they may come to you with things, and it's all right to step back and say, you know what, I need some time to think about that.
Mhm.
And again, you don't need to know everything about their lives, and nor do you need to, or would you want to. They deserve to have a little bit of privacy. And if you have a good relationship, they're going to come to you about the tough stuff or the hard decisions. And as long as you create that open opportunity for them to know that you're going to listen if they do come to you with the tough stuff, that you're going to explore it with them and provide an open floor, then they will.
Exactly. And that's so important because, snooping, reading diaries, listening in on conversations, checking phones. I mean, some people may have been there with their parents. It doesn't feel good, and that's not how you want to gain information from your child. You want to have that open conversation, but you have to build that rapport first, because if the relationship has been broken or you're not that close anymore, hanging out with them, noticing when they're doing well, asking them to come along to grab the coffee, or, come and sit with us at dinner. It's important that you're here versus, come on, you don't go up to your room. Spend some time with us. You're always on that stupid phone. You know what? I don't want to be around because you're always nagging at me, or telling me you don't like it. So being mindful of your approach as well.
And if you're concerned about your child's behavior, there's a way to have that conversation, right?
Mhm.
Rather than snooping, right?
Yes, absolutely.
There's
Yeah.
a way to have a difficult conversation.
Yeah. And when you do have these conversations, then you want to think about listening to understand, not to respond. We tend to get defensive, or what are they going to say, or what they say could be triggering us. And then it brings up emotion in us. And then we start responding in certain ways. So we want to be aware of our reaction. Their inability to answer you may actually activate you, because if you're saying, well, you're not happy to be here, so what do you want there to be different? Tell me how we can kind of build our relationship. I miss you. And then they're like, I don't know. I don't know. And then it's like, what are you talking about? You don't know. Like, why are we having this conversation? It's always me, and this could be your inside dialogue, but maybe your body language is very different, or your tone is like, are you kidding me? And it's very curt. So being aware of this, and that you can't badger them, you can't force an answer out of someone, right? So just to be aware of that, and that this is going to take more than one conversation. It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about a difficult conversation about sexuality, about relationships, about schooling, maybe they're struggling with schooling or their mental illness. I mean, this is not just going to be one little pretty conversation that's super comfortable. So you may have to break it up a little bit. It may take some time for them to feel comfortable to share.
I
And
just
be
want to add something in here, Michelle.
sure,
Sorry,
yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
Sometimes these conversations can be very challenging for parents, and sometimes we end up with the dialogue, attacking. But sometimes it's the opposite of that as well. Sometimes parents just back off and just give up and walk
Yes.
away. And some of that is out of their own sort of not feeling, confident that they can have discussions with their kids about some of these subject matters. So that's part of doing your own research as well if it's a tough subject. Whether it's talking to a family doctor or, finding out some other information about things to sort of help you to understand what might be going on underneath the surface so that when you do have the conversation with your child or teen, that you're able to sort of, have a base of knowledge, I guess, so that you can have a conversation with them in a smart way rather than feeling like you're either attacking or ignoring.
Exactly. And I think that's another important thing too, is how we react to stressful situations, or that we are feeling defeated. We do feel like I don't have a connection here with my child. So you know what? I've tried. Forget it. You know what? You want to be this way, they'll come to me if they need it. And that isn't helpful either, because sometimes they really want to come to you. They just are scared, or the situation in the past hasn't gone well, they've been in trouble or whatever it is, and now it's like, now I'm ready, but I don't know how to go here. So as the adult, we have to come towards them and say, look, I know in the past it hasn't gone well, or I know this is a tough conversation, so I'm just going to share with you some of my concerns. You don't have to answer me right now, and we can talk about this later, right? And then that leads into, I really, what we've just talked about is your own anxieties, how your words and actions might shut down the relationship. Sometimes maybe you were that person that as a teenager that pushed limits, that did things that weren't what you would want your child to do. So then we automatically think that your child is going to do those things. That the world is very unsafe, so we better not go there. We better not do this. And so I'm just going to say no to everything. No to social media, no to boyfriends or girlfriends, no to whatever. And then that really shuts down the relationship as well. But that's our anxiety. And we're not giving the child the benefit of the doubt that they do have the skill. And if you're worried, let's talk about that a little bit. That's me. I don't want to say the wrong thing and don't know the right thing. Um, yeah, and that's okay. I mean, I think you're human. So if they ask you a question about something and you don't know the answer, that's okay to say that, right? But to not have that conversation with them about something that's important to them, what's the message that that child gets? This isn't important to you. You don't get it, and that's not necessarily the message you want to give, right?
Just do your homework, right? Like reach out and do your exploring, right? Talking to family doctors if there's information that you need to, feel like you need to sort of gain for yourself, right? Absolutely, just kind of build that up a little bit for yourself. You can practice with somebody, with a friend or a family member. But it's just about taking those little steps. And yes, knowing that you don't have to respond all the time to everything.
Or
And
being able to
saying that,
say that to them, right? That they don't need to respond has been very helpful.
absolutely. And you know what? Maybe it's also an opportunity to work on something together. To say, you know what, I'm not really sure. What's your point? Ask them what's their point of view on something. Maybe we can figure this out together. It might be actually an opportunity for you guys to work together on something. So there's lots of ways to sort of look at that. It doesn't have to be a complete shutdown. But the
Right.
avoidance factor can be a real thing that can get in the way of relationships and be a real impact. So be creative with your communication, right? There's lots of nonverbal ways to communicate with your kids. There's the smile, there's the high five, there's the pat on the back. Um, you know, you can use text. There's all kind. Gosh, I mean, like let's talk about social media and stuff like that. There's all kinds of options and emojis and all kinds of things that we can use to express emotion and stuff today. But you can also do it while you're in different places and spaces, right? So cooking dinner, if you're out for a drive, if you're out working in the backyard, maybe planting some flowers this spring, or if you're just sitting down, doing some coloring or doing a craft, right?
Mhm.
Just use spontaneous moments in time. Don't have to be structured conversations all the time.
Exactly. And I think too, that comment that I'm afraid of the snide comments back. Well, if there's going to be rudeness going back and forth, then you can pause and say, you seem upset. That comment was disrespectful to me. Let's put a pause on this. Sometimes what we do in adult relationships as well is you say something, it triggers me, it's hurtful. So I'm going to give you a dig back. And then you give a dig back. And then we're digging. And that is no longer conversation. And it's a very disrespectful conversation. And that could be what happens in your home, maybe even with your partner. And we have to change that. Because as soon as you start getting heated and we're screaming back and forth and we're throwing digs, that is no longer a conversation. And that's when you have to be calm and prepared for it to say, hey, I really want to have a conversation with you. The last time we talked, though, I felt like we were just going back and forth. I just want to chat with you. And if I'm finding that we're getting heated, we're just going to take a break. It doesn't mean that this isn't important to me. However, I want this to stay respectful. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And I want to be able to have a conversation that we're going to get somewhere instead of just fighting back and forth.
And it's okay to say, this didn't feel good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, and other ways to communicate, like Sue was saying earlier, when you're side by side with somebody, you know, in the garden, in the car. Sometimes they're a little more comfortable, but conversation sometimes is tough. So texting can be helpful. Having a shared communication journal, so when they come home, they can write down, didn't have a great day today, got an 80 on my test, was expecting a 95, and I don't want to talk about it. So at least something's going on. We don't have to talk about everything. Um, and also these conversation starters where you can create a bunch of them. You can write some, your teen can write some. Maybe your teen has a message for you, a message for their sister, a message for each parent. It might be a little bit different, so you can put it in envelopes and then you can read the sentence starters later. So just being a little more creative as far as how they're communicating, because sometimes writing is a threat to some children, because what are you going to do with that? What are you going to, it's like sending a nasty email. You want to be, you want to be mindful of what you're writing. So sometimes asking them to write things, they might not be interested because it might be used.
Especially if you've ever crossed that line where you've come back at them and used something that they've said or written, right? Nobody likes that, right? Because everybody makes mistakes. And we don't want to have stuff that's brought back up and thrown in our face again. So it is a protection thing that they are very cautious about, how are you going to use this, right? So make it sort of more impromptu and side by side. I mean, gosh, I grew up in the era of, look at me when I'm talking to you. But that's really awkward, right? It's really uncomfortable. So it's much more natural actually to have like side by side conversations with people. I think this is why actually, a lot of people really struggle with even Zooms, because you're seeing people face to face. So it can be awkward and uncomfortable for a lot of people to use this kind of forum. But yeah, try and just do a little bit more sort of laid back and feel like it's natural conversation. You don't want to feel stifled with your kids.
So this is another, way to kind of get them to express themselves. Again, you've got to see if it's going to work for your teen. But this is, fill in your body. You can get a body outline anywhere. How much of your body is filled with certain emotion, right? So, this is my calm. This is how much anxiety is in me. This is how much happiness, overwhelm, sadness. And wow, thanks for sharing that with me. Do we need to do something with this? Maybe not, but maybe saying, I'm noticing that there's actually not a lot of the happiness there. But it looks like anxiety kind of fills you up a lot. I actually didn't know you were feeling so anxious all the time. So another way to kind of help them share. And then what do we do? How do we fit? I apologize. My dog is.
This is one tool that Michelle is sharing, and I'm just reading your question about, sometimes your daughter wants to tell you things but doesn't know how to say it. Again, you can have a conversation with her too about how does she feel comfortable expressing, right? Like, would it be more using emojis? Would it be doing a diagram? Would it be using some of the questions, like the sentence prompts that we used? Like, would that be something that could be helpful for her, right? You can talk about emotions. You can share times when people felt sad. You can share different things like that back and forth. And what is it that she fears about sharing that with you, right? You can ask her those things.
Yeah, and I don't think you need to help her with everything all the time. I mean, if I tell Sue, I've had a bad day. Well, what's the matter? What made your day bad? Well, was it this? Have you tried that? No, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in you giving me advice. I just need you to hear me and say, I'm sorry you've had a bad day, right? You know, can I do anything to help? Maybe you're going to say that, maybe not. Just acknowledging that they've had a hard time. We've had a lot of things to be sad about, and emotions are normal. And sometimes just being able to hear that someone is here for me and they're just going to sit with me in silence. That's enough. We don't have to fix things because we can't take emotion away, and they're allowed to have emotion. They may just need a hug. What do you need from me right now?
Letting
Right?
her know that you're there when she's ready to talk
Yeah.
about it, and that she knows that. And if you're practicing doing some of these other things, if you're practicing validating her emotions at other times, if you're showing her that you can trust, that she can trust in you to share other things that might be inconsequential, right? Could be tiny little things, but if you're showing her that she can trust in your response, right? That you're not going to lose your, you know what, when she tells you something, right? Because sometimes this is what kids fear. They fear the parental response, right? So they hold back. So if you're starting to show her that she can trust in you, then eventually she will come forward, but just let her know and reassure her that when she's ready, or if she feels stuck, she can come to you. Or does she have someone else that she could talk to, right? So I think that's one thing that's really important, is making sure that she knows that she has someone that she can go to that is, sort of a safe person that she can talk to, like another adult.
Right. So we're going to be talking about the calm technique. This is a book that you can purchase if you want to. We don't have any connections with Jennifer Caleri. I wish I did because she's amazing. She's a Toronto social worker. So I love her technique. You can watch her on YouTube talking about this technique, and it will help to open up that conversation. So the first thing is that connection. Before you can have a conversation, you need to connect with your team. And if they don't feel connected, they don't feel like you're connecting with them, then they're not going to want to engage with you. So that body language, eye contact, leaning forward, um, and they can finally say, okay, someone is finally listening to me, right? So even your comment to say, that everyone is having a hard time. Well, yeah, maybe everyone is having a hard time, but what I'm dealing with is not what everybody's dealing with, right? So I just want you to hear my side, and I'm going through this, right? And I want to know that somebody is just going to be able to be there for me. So we're matching the urgency, and that is kind of that matching their emotion. So if someone is feeling sad, and when it happens with adults, I don't, if Sue was feeling sad, I wouldn't be like, what's the matter? And throwing butterflies and fairies at her. I would match her affect and be kind of sad with her to say, what's going on? Like, I see that you're so sad, and I would be sad with her. But when it comes to our kids, it's like, I don't like this emotion. It doesn't make me feel good. I'm just going to tell them everything is okay. Don't worry about it. Or you're fine. Let's move on. This isn't a big deal. There is no connection there. So you know what? I'm going to shut this down, or I'm going to get triggered. And that's when I'm going to start giving you the snide remarks. I'm going to be, giving you the dig saying, you don't get me. You don't get it. Right. And it can just start with a simple body language to say, I'm here for you.
So you want to try and make sure that you're putting your own sort of agenda aside, right? And devoting your attention to the connection, right? And again, this is where, you've got, your own story, your own stuff. And sometimes we have to make sure that we're not mixing it up, and if we have things that we need to have dealt with, or if we need to get some extra help or have some therapy for issues, because sometimes things can get triggered for us, from our own past and from our own upbringings, and we think that maybe we have to raise our children a certain way because of the way that we were raised. If we need some help with that, then reach out and get that help. Because if it's interfering with your relationship with your child and you want that to improve, you want to make sure you're not sort of blending those two things. So clear your agenda, put it aside for the moment. You want to make sure that you're paying attention and that they have your focus and that they have your energy to really working on that connection and making sure that you're not putting in those stories, right? This is about their lived experience, not yours. There may be times where, you may share little fun stories about, your life or your upbringing, but it doesn't have to go into any great details. Because again, this is about their life and their times, right?
Right.
Leave those
Yeah, and I
stories.
think this is a tough one. This one's a tough one for parents because they think, well, I'll tell them that I had a hard time too with my mother, or that math was
Times
really
and
hard for me
drugs,
as well.
right?
And then what is the story about? It's not about my struggle. Now we're talking about you and your struggle, and I want someone to hear what I'm going
Or
through.
I may
So if you
turn it around and say, well, you did it. Why can't I do it?
right,
Right?
yeah, it can backfire too. Yeah,
Backfire. That was me.
yeah.
I was the rebellious one. What can I
Yeah,
say?
but you want to make that connection first, that they know that you are hearing them before you start, giving advice and
Yes.
throwing in your own stories,
Right?
right?
So sharing that experience, their experience with them is different.
Mhm.
You don't need to fix it, right? So again, taking that foot off the pedal, right? It's just,
Mhm.
reassurance, right? You don't have to, give them all of that extra, it's not that bad, don't worry about it, because for them it is. For them it's devastating that they've, broken up for it might be their first love relationship that ended. That's
Mhm.
devastating, right? So, but we're thinking, oh, come on, you're probably going to have, many more relationships before you finally end up with the final one. They
Mhm.
haven't gotten there yet, right? They haven't had those experiences that we've had and that we've lived and we've made those connections. They still need to get there. They still need to feel that. They still need to feel that sense of heartbreak or the sense of joy or passion or love or romance in getting that first Valentine or that first kiss or whatever it was, right? They need to
Mhm.
feel that passion, right? So solving problems, jumping in to fix for them, it takes that away. It takes that experience away from them. And they're really not going to want to, sort of share that with you because
Yeah.
they're feeling like you're sort of depleting that and taking that experience away from them. So be part of that with them, share in that moment with them. And again, reflect and remember what that was like for you, especially at those big moments and opportunities, good times and bad.
So this is that matching the emotion, mirroring their affect. So, connect, just like this picture here, she's leaning in, she's matching her daughter's emotion. She's feeling what she's feeling. This can be really tough for parents because, let's say they even got like, an 85% and you're like, oh, come on, an 85%, like, so what? Or, oh, they didn't get the newest phone that their friends got, or, they don't have this or that. And you're thinking, come on, kid. Like, is this really life or death? Do you know what's going on in this world? Well, for them right then and there, this is what they're going through. So it can be really tough for us to relate to what they're going through. You cannot fake this. You cannot just put on a happy face and say, oh gosh, that must be really hard. They can see through it. So you have to find that, try to imagine what it's like to be in their shoes, to really do this and to really match their affect. It has to be genuine, right? And it's the same thing with that urgency. It has to be genuine. When you're mirroring, you need to join them in showing this emotion, and it has to be like sincere and not exaggerated. And I think these pictures are actually really good examples of matching that emotion. And the next piece is just that listening. And this is actually from the book, this little piece, you know. So this is about a teenager that is being dragged out of the house to go to gymnastics. Probably gymnastics that the parent, you know, was like, if you want to do this, I'll pay for it, but you have to, you know, the child probably wants to do it. But they didn't feel like it that day. So this was the response is here you are, dragged into the car. I'm making you go to gymnastics when you were perfectly happy at home. You're feeling like you're in control of your life, and I'm dragging you off somewhere you don't want to go. What does our rational thinking think? You wanted to sign up for this. Do you know how much this is costing me? I don't feel like driving either. And that, you know, go, 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 go in our heads. It doesn't mean that your emotion is not important. However, if you're trying to make these connections, this is the piece that we have to be doing and trying to put yourselves in their shoes and listen to what they're saying.
And this is just a little bit more of the same of what we have been
Summary.
talking about.
Just a summary.
Yeah.
So now you have all the tips. You can go and have perfect relationships with your kids. Is there any questions about any of that?
Take your foot off the gas pedal, guys. Reach out, try and connect with them gradually, slowly, little bits at a time.
Exactly.
You got this.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of
Okay.
it. Don't be afraid of it.
Right. Yeah, they're just people. Right. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming. And we hope we found that helpful. Like Sue said, just take the first step and you'll get there.
Feel free. You can either contact us or you can reach out to, we have our old registration on here.
Oh, yes, it is. Okay. So just call us.
Hi, can you hear me again? You can.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
good.
can hear you.
Turns out I had muted my mic on the headphones itself. We'll make sure that the right link is on the resource page to go and sign up for other
Thank
sessions.
you very much, Louise.
And I think there is a
And our email.
yes, okay.
Our email
There's
as well.
I think there is one more question there in the question box. I'll just copy it over here. Guess that's the question. Just there at the end. Seems very COVID specific.
The COVID stuff. Yeah. The COVID stuff is really challenging right now. You know, I mean, all you can do really is try and listen, and we have to try and help them. Everybody is really missing that whole connection piece, right? I mean, it's just been such a massive impact for everybody. And for the teens, I mean, yeah, this is what they do. I mean, this is their whole life is about social connection and building social connection. So just trying to listen to them, hear them out, help them find fun, creative ways that maybe they can connect with their peers. You know, I mean, yes, we're going into severe lockdown for 28 days. That's going to be a huge impact. So can they do some Zooms with their friends? Can they do some fun TikTok challenges? Can they do, you know, just any way of connecting with them, you know, to try and feel like they're still, you know, in the loop with them, right?
Yeah, and it could be an opportunity to connect with the family.
Yeah.
To put it back on them to say, look, like we're kind of lost in all of this. Creating routines might be helpful. How do we support you? Because it's very easy to wake up, turn on your computer, and work in your bed, right? You don't have to put your video on. You don't have to respond. So it's very easy to get in that slump of not showering, not doing things. So,
Leaving
you know, what can we
jams
do
on.
every day but let's go for a walk. How can we connect with people in ways that are safe? And sometimes it is just listening, because in the moment, it's just listening. It's just giving them a hug, sitting silently with them. And then when they're a little calmer, to say, look, this stuff is coming up on a regular basis.
Yep.
Do you want to create a plan together? Can we work on this together?
Even having a little family powwow, right? Like have a little family powwow every couple of days, right? I mean, if the kids are kind of offloading on one another and it's kind of putting a stress and strain on parents, have a little sort of get together, right? Where you guys are just touching base and, let's do a little temperature check. How's everybody doing? Maybe somebody's annoying somebody, and maybe if you need to, use a talking stick so everybody takes a turn and everybody gets 5 minutes to talk or 3 minutes to talk. Whoever has the stick, everybody has to listen. So that way you feel like you're being heard. And just using that as a point to touch base with everybody to make sure that checking in, making sure everybody is okay, right? How's everybody doing? Do we need to change things up? If you're stuck doing the same chore all the time, plus you're being home for 28 days, that can get pretty boring too. So maybe we need to change up chores. Maybe we need to have a dance party in the kitchen while we're cooking dinner. What can we do that's different? Like, how do we, throw some fun and interject some things into our day? Have a fun jar, have the kids create something. Have a turnaround dinner, I don't know, have a Hawaiian luau in the living room or something. But try and come up with some fun things. Get the kids working on that too for themselves, to be creative and working things together.
Yeah. And also having those conversations separately with each child, so both of them feel heard, or as many children as you have. And then if there's two parents in the home, that you are talking about things, so you're not coming at it with everybody just sitting at the table with no prep. That you've talked to one, you've talked to the other, so everybody feels heard, and now we're coming together. And if you and your partner are in the home together, are you on the same page? What are you working towards? And then when you have that powwow, that, get together, whatever you're wanting to call it, that we're not just coming in like, okay, everybody just talk and whatever happens, happens. It's just like a business meeting idea of what is the plan? I'm hearing your concerns. What are some ideas? Write all the ideas down, and then which ones are we going to try, right? We're not going to go with all of them.
And I hear that you're saying it's tiring for you, but you know what? You don't have to do it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
The mums and dads don't have to do it all. We've got teenagers here that are very capable of helping out, and they need to be part of the solution as well, and coming up with some creative ideas and solutions too. So and they can be helping out as well, so they can be part of the whole process, so that you don't have to feel that you're taking that all on, but you may need to initiate having that get together and powwow, so that we are doing that check-in with everybody.
Right. And we do have courses on burnout, and, self-care for parents is really important, because sometimes we are feeling overwhelmed by it all because we have our own stress that we're not dealing with. We're not exercising, we're not eating well, we're not sleeping well because we have stress. And then we've got two kids complaining over who's watching the TV or whose turn it is to do whatever. And it's like, this is not a big deal, kid. You want problems? I'll give you problems. And it's really tough to connect with children that, you have no patience for. So even just being able to step back to say, how much do I need to take on? Because usually when you're overwhelmed, we feel like we need to take everything on. When we feel more like less stressed, and we are better at setting boundaries and saying no, right? So that's something else to think about as well.
Yeah, for sure. Break out an old game that you guys used to love to play. Start a new challenge.
Exactly. I love that. Do that tonight. Turn off the news and let's hang out. Let's have some fun. Exactly.
You've got this. You do. You've got this.
That's terrific. Thanks for that extra
I have to shut off.
info, and I was, as you were speaking, I was definitely thinking of some of the self-care focus sessions that are there, and also some of the things that have been
Yes.
shared through social media about the fun things, and kind of a little bit of going back to the pre-internet, maybe even pre-TV, things that families
Yes.
used to do. Uh, Although a lot of those are even impacted. In fact, one of our kids joked the other day.
Listen, Monopoly is always around, and you got time to play Monopoly now. It takes what, a day and a half, I feel like, to play.
Right?
I
You have the
actually,
time now.
yeah,
Everybody always has like 1,000-piece puzzle or 3,000-piece puzzle somewhere hanging around
yep,
in the
we
house.
did some
Yeah.
puzzles over the holidays. I also picked up a new, but it's a little bit different, but not a whole lot different. The Game of Life, the one with the cars, and you go around and pick up
Okay.
children or pets this time.
Yeah.
So
My
we had a
daughter
good
loves
time
that.
playing that this week. But I also,
How many kids did you end up with,
I
Louise?
only had 2, but my daughter and son teamed up
Oh.
because it only comes with 4 cars now instead of 6. So they teamed up, and
okay.
they had 11 people in their car at the end. Because you can have twins
no.
and triplets too.
And if you don't have, like nothing's good. Like, what about a good old game of charades?
Yeah, that would be fun.
Right? Like, where you gotta act something out, right? Like,
I was trying to think of one that had a little more physical activity, and I'm like, we got Twister. Let's play Twister. And then one of the kids is like, Mom, that's too much close contact.
Too much close contact. Okay, we'll go back to charades. Everybody has to act.
Well, a little bit of laughter, and the link to the resource page is on there. You'll get a follow-up email because the resources aren't completely on there yet. It's still just a draft page, but we'll add some extra things there.
Hear a joke during dinner.
So thank you, everyone.
Lighten it up. Lighten it up, I guess, is the point here, too.
Yeah, there is an awful lot of
Thank you, Louise. Thank you for your support tonight.
You are very welcome.
It's a heavy time. It's a heavy time. So give yourself a break and just realize that you don't necessarily have to get everything done right now. And your house might look a little messy, or it might look not as clean or as organized as what you normally keep it, and that's okay. Right? You just got to give yourself a bit of a breather right now that you got to get through. Right? So it's about that.
Excellent tip, and supporting our teens and doing the same too. Thank you, everyone. Definitely check out the website for more great sessions to sign up for, and take care of yourselves. And thank you, Sue and Michelle. We'll see you again soon.
Bye, everybody.